All right, buddy. Well, it's 5 after. We'll get started and we'll let people chime in a little bit here. I know we're expecting some more. I've had some RSVPs and everything. So listen, Jake, thank you so much for tuning in to the Think Like an Executive and joining us here. Uh, Think Like an Executive was kind of my brainchild for the last 20 years, if you will. I really launched it about a year and a half ago. And really, it's just I find that there's a fatal flaw in the real estate industry, and it's basically people aren't willing to help other people out unless their hand is out and they're getting paid a commission. So, kind of going with one of your slogans, the compassion before commission,
Right.
I've always dedicated myself to helping agents grow, agents build themselves, be better agents. And really, it kind of came from a selfish standpoint because I know that I'm going to do a deal with an agent out there that is, I hope, equal to me or better. And often the case is it's not because of lack of training and education.
Right.
So I really want people to be at the same level, if not better than me, when I do transactions with them. So Think Like an Executive is really just about holding a mirror to your face and asking you point blank, are you ready for the amount of success and ready, willing and able to do what it takes to be successful? And so it's kind of a point blank, black and white kind of instructional thing about coaching. And if I'm telling you to do something, believe me, you're doing it for the right reasons and you're going to close deals. So that's what Think Like an Executive is. As more people chime in and completely miss that, so that's all right. But guys, we're here with Jake Lynn today of All Things Telesales podcast. Jake and I have been speaking over the past couple of weeks and have established a pretty decent relationship, I'd say, and had some great conversations. So
Right.
Jake, welcome. Thank you, man, so much for being here.
My pleasure, man. Appreciate the opportunity to be of service.
Absolutely. I always love that about you. Oh, you've got these great sayings, man. I love it. We're gonna hear plenty of them today. That's for sure.
Yeah, but
So tell me a little bit about All Things Podcast, and before you actually go into it, the one thing I will mention to you guys is that All Things Telesales Podcast, you launched it this year, right?
right. Yeah, about 6 months ago.
And your amount of success that you've had, and we're going to dive into that in a little bit, but your amount of success that you've had in the last 6 months, from the guest speakers that you've had on there to the amount of followers that you've had, the downloads. I mean, you gave me your download numbers, but I'm going to kind of flip flop here. I want you to tell me what All Things Telesales podcast is really about and what your business is about.
Right. Yeah, I appreciate it. So basically it's about compassion before commission. You said it there. It's about changing the perception of telesales and about how we can be of service, how we serve, don't sell. So most of the people that we've brought onto the show, they share the same mindset, the same methodology of the way in which that we serve people when we don't sell them, in the way of which we put compassion before commission. And so really that was my objective, to put out a podcast around sales, no hidden agenda, just to be of service, just to really change the perception of this industry that I've fallen in love with over the last couple of years.
Well, it sounds commendable. But I mean, it's just, it's the same thing with me. It's like, you just want to help people, you want to help them get better.
Right.
And, I mean, telesales, it's a tough business, dude. It's a
Absolutely.
tough business. So how did you fall in love with it? I mean, because all you're going to get is constant rejection.
Right.
So how'd you fall in love with that? I mean, were you dumped early as a child or something?
Right.
Like, what is it?
That tough skin. Yeah. So I would say that's funny. But mostly it's just about the freedom, the lifestyle in which that it gives me, the flexibility, the reason why, like, the bigger the why, the harder the try, right? So like my why was big enough to say, well, I wanted to be home. I didn't want to miss any doctor's appointments. So I couldn't go do as an insurance agent at the time, I couldn't go do the sit down at your round table, have to come to you and travel all over the tri-state area and the Midwest at the time. Now, of course, I live in LA and Calabasas. And the lifestyle in which that it can give you, if you just work hard, be consistent, persistent, without quit, pursuit of your potential, if you just keep dialing and smiling and having that serve, don't sell mindset, like really, you can go from cold calling to buying your lead list to sometimes you just never despise a day of small beginnings. I have cold called. That is where I started, but that's not where I've ended, right? And even working low intent leads, we can dive into all that as far as like from the rejection standpoint. But really just the bigger the why, the harder the try. For me, with the high risk IVF pregnancy with my wife and everything, like I had to make telesales work, and I was determined to make it work. And as doing so, I had the privilege of being able to work with other agents, like kind of what you're doing in the real estate industry. I was doing for final expense. And as a result, like just building that relationship and being of service and leadership, really that's what I really fell in love with, was teaching other people how to do it.
Well, you kind of bring up something interesting though, that, you talked about your wife, and I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. It's completely personal. And I love that,
Yeah.
that you're so open and transparent, but you realized that you had, I guess, a need, if you will, to make something happen, to do something. We all have a need. Everyone on here has a bill to pay, has, a husband or a wife or something like that. So what's the differentiating factor of you realized that you had something to do, you had to do it, and you did it? Like, because most people will go, I got to pay the bill this month. Maybe I'll pay it a little bit later. Maybe I get a 29-day grace period. No, I'll make money later. I know plenty of people that are, banking on this $600 extra a month that we're getting right now from unemployment and stuff, which is beautiful. It's going to end. What are you going to do? So, I mean, how did you really step up to the occasion, rise to the occasion, and just say, I'm going to do it, and you did it? That's what I'm curious about.
Right. I mean, it was that, I'm not going to miss any doctor's appointments. I'm going to work my own schedule, and I'm going to do call blocking, and I'm going to make sure that there is enough income coming in. I'm going to make sure that I have my bills printed off in front of me. Not only am I going to have my bills put off in front of me, but also like, what's the payoff of that bill? And if I were to pay it off a year from now, and I would train agents, and I would do this, implement this as well, the strategy of, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. If it's important to you, it needs to be in sight so that it's in mind, right? So like having pictures of my family, like all these different things, like having it in my office is so important. Having it on the back screen of my computer, like right now I have my teletraining logo on the background of my computer, because to me that's my why right now, is training. You know what I mean? So like having your why, the bigger the why, the harder the try. Absolutely. So being mindful of keeping it in sight, in mind, is how, that's the first and foremost thing that I picked up on early to understand. But don't get me wrong, like there are challenges along the way, and there's still challenges today. I mean, there's always going to be challenges. It's a matter of how we overcome and how we handle those.
So basically your vision board is all around you, because you hear about people making a vision board. Okay, I'm going to put a Porsche up here. I'm going to put $1 million over here and stuff. Your vision board, and whatever your vision board looks like, is literally all around you. It's on your desk. It's on your piece of paper in front of you and stuff, right?
Right. Yeah. Like I always got this notepad right here. Like it's here, like my goals, what I need to do today. Like if you don't write it down, it's most likely not going to get done. You know, like we live in a world where execution is worship. Like if you prove yourself to be an executioner and the person that gets things done, not just the person that's a visionary that has all these ideas, but if you're a person that knows how to implement and build out the strategy and the workflows, like that's the type of stuff that is really important, is the execution part of it.
Sure. So let's talk about the era that we're in right now. You can't, as a realtor, you can't door knock. You can't go to somebody's house. Oh my God. I mean, can you imagine door knocking somebody's house right now? Like
they're swipe left.
It would not be good. Right. So, the art of cold calling is something that, I mean, let's face it, it's an art. I mean, you have to, you can practice it as much as you want, but there are just certain key elements that you just can't train to people as hard as you try. So I think the foundation of sales, cold calls, is now making a comeback, because we can't door knock, which is where, we get business from as realtors. We can't do open houses, which when I first started out 20 years ago in real estate, all of my buyers came from open houses. Can't do those right now just because of coronavirus. So the fundamental of making the cold call, which I think is such a great lost art form, is coming back. Text message, it's such a, I have people that text message me. If text message goes longer than 3 times, I pick up the phone and call them. Like, just call me. It's so much easier. So, I'm glad that people were coming back to the foundation of making cold calls. It's the only way that you can express empathy, your compassion for the business. Right. So tell me what's basically, I don't know, an acronym, an idea, a concept that makes somebody a good telesales agent, a good cold caller.
Right. Yeah. So if you tune into the podcast, you see most of the time I start them off with "What's up, telesales beasts?" And so there's an acronym for the word beast, right? And it's not just like, oh, it's beast mode, I'm on fire, and I'm a closer. No, to me, a beast is a servant. So a beast is acronym for that is be bold. You have confidence, conviction, clarity. The person that has clarity and confidence in themselves is bound to be successful. So you have a boldness about you. B. E is empathetic. Like you really do put yourself in the other person's shoes and really feel what they're feeling and really there for them and listening. Like I want to challenge everybody to listen more than you talk. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen, be empathetic. Assumptive, always assume the sell. Always assume that outcome is going to be in your favor because you're enjoying the journey. Emotionally detach yourself from the outcome, and while you're assuming that you're just going to enjoy the journey, that the sale is going to come as a byproduct of your service. S, servant. You are a servant, you serve, you don't sell. T, you're teachable. You go out and seek teachers like Coach Galardi or myself, or you go out and listen to the podcast. You go out to seek to be the best version of yourself. That makes you a beast. B, bold. E, empathetic. A, assumptive. S, servant. T, teachable. That makes you a good telesales rock star beast.
I mean, listen, I should have written those down, but I'm going to have to rewatch this. But, the empathetic one is something that I think that a lot of people miss in telesales. But I'm just going to ask you point blank. Are you a salesperson?
I love sales, man. Yeah, I'm still a salesperson. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Sales professional. I'm a sales professional. Yeah.
Okay. I guess it was kind of a trick question on my end because I was hoping you would have said, no, I'm not a salesperson. I'm whatever, an educator, an advisor, whatever. But no, I mean, listen, we're all salespeople at heart and stuff.
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
I think so. But I think it's the way that you sell something without selling something. Right. It's you and I spoke a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. And you asked me, you said, what was the best sales call you've ever had? Yeah. And my answer was something to the effect of, the best sales call I've ever had was the call that was nothing about sales. Right. It was about, hey, how about them Steelers? I just got off an interview earlier this week with somebody. And at the end of the interview, we were talking about the jersey that was behind the guy, the sports memorabilia he has, Dave Winfield. I mean, I love sports and stuff. And all of a sudden, the 15, 20-minute interview that we'd had turned into 45 minutes because it wasn't a sales call. It wasn't an interview. It was, we found common ground. And I know that you talk a lot about that. So how important and how do you actually find common ground with somebody that you're just meeting for the first time?
Right. So, I mean, it depends on so I do training from SDR world with working with SaaS companies. I've trained, software companies how to sell over the phone and yada, yada, yada. It just really depends on data. Data is really important. Having pre-call preparation, understanding, you really, there's this saying, and it's been said for decades, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care about them. Well, I add to that.
Wait, say that again.
No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care about them. Right?
Okay.
We've heard that time and time again, but I would add to that, no one truly understands or cares how much you know until you know so much about them already. So that's why pre-call preparation, is so important, right? Whenever you connected with me on LinkedIn, I saw that you're from Woodland Hills. And so I'm already connected to you. We already have that common ground because I just moved here. Maybe you might be able to help me find some things out here. I'm going to find that common ground. That's how you and I really hit it off. I mean, sure. I get hit up on LinkedIn all the time, right? But then I say, you're local to me, you're in real estate. Maybe I'm going to dabble in real estate. So we already have that common ground because we connected on LinkedIn, So LinkedIn is huge. There's a thing that Josh is on here. We just did a little run through of Crystal Knows on LinkedIn, which is a free plugin You get up to like 10 profile views, Crystal knows. You can go on allthingstellasales.com, hit the resources tab. There's a link to Crystal Knows inside there. But that is a really good thing where you've heard of disc assessments, like
Sure.
finding common ground with somebody is, I know your personality type. You're a driver. Let's just say you're a driver and I'm an influencer. Like a disc assessment, there's all these different types of personalities, right? So now I have visibility using a tool like Crystal Knows to understand how I might communicate with you. And Crystal Knows even breaks down in a way of which that some things that you might want to say and some things you definitely want to avoid saying, right?
Sure.
Just based on that personality type and way of which you communicate with an individual because of their personality.
So, but that's interesting though. If I'm making a call for, again, let's go back to real estate because most everybody on here is a realtor. If I'm going back to making a cold call on real estate, how much pre-phone call work am I actually going to do about, Jason Galardi at such and such street, or am I just picking it up and then trying to establish a rapport? And then on that second phone call, I'm going to go to their Facebook. I'm going to Google them and then find out, oh, wow, they do live in Woodland Hills or they come from Vegas. So we have that common ground.
Yeah. I mean, I would even say, research is really, really important to any cold call to have some kind of understanding of who and which that you're calling and reaching out to find that common ground. And nowadays, you can go on Fiverr and get a virtual assistant for, pennies on the dollar to help you build out your research and everything for your cold call list. But I would also add to it, I'm not a TCPA attorney. So like you want to make sure that you do scrub, before you cold call your lists and things like that as well. So there's a lot of activities that we're not mentioning that I feel like we should be aware of if we're talking to real estate agents, because I don't want you to get caught up in a class action lawsuit either, right?
Sure. Sure.
So I'm familiar with the Telesales from the legality standpoint. I've been to multiple TCPA summits. So before I give any kind of advice on cold calling to a realtor, I want to be mindful and sensitive to. You also now have the CCPA to be aware of. So if you're calling in California, it's not to scare you or to allude to you that you shouldn't cold call, but you should be sensitive to all these different acronyms that are legalities of which you cold call. There's National Do Not Call Registry. So, but the way in which you reach out, let's say a cold call, assuming that all these steps have been covered, you've scrubbed it, you're good to go to make the cold call. It's always more of a beautiful thing if you build a sales funnel, like an opt-in landing page, and you get permission to call. That's always more of an ideal situation. But as far as the legalities in which you call mobile phone numbers have changed. And so you want to make sure that you have a mobile DNC scrubber. Like there's a lot of things on the legality standpoint, but again, I'm not a TCPA attorney, but
Sure.
I definitely want to preface before I give advice on that as well, because that's really, really important. But how I would structure a cold call if I didn't know anything about them, then I would just say, hey, is this the famous Jason Galardi?
Okay. You'd probably get me laughing right out the gate, but okay. Right. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And then one or two things are going to happen. You're going to let me keep going. You're going to say, well, who the heck are you? If you say, who the heck are you? I'm going to say, well, I'm so glad you asked, it's because now already, I'm not going to ask you, do you have a minute? Because you already asked me, and never ask, do you have a minute? Never say that. Instead say, do you have a moment? Right? Yeah, okay. A moment is like, yeah, we all have a moment. I have a moment. I picked up the phone. I have a moment, right?
Sure.
So,
somebody's generally available if they're going to answer the phone, right? Especially from a number that they don't know.
Right.
So they can give you 30 seconds to let you get your opening script out there. Right. So is this the famous Jake Lynn? That's your opening, huh?
Yeah. And then they're already going to be wanting to know who the heck I am, right? So if they don't ask me, well, who the heck are you? Then I'll say, then I'm going to go ahead and address it. You probably have no idea who the heck I am. This is Jake. You probably have no idea who the heck I am. But do you have a moment for me to tell you why I'm calling you? I'm going to get permission to go into my, not necessarily pitch, but how I say the presentation, there are two key values in which that I can serve their need in any script, right? So these are the two things that either I know about you, I know that you live at this address, and I know this address is evaluated at X amount of dollars and know that there's a bunch of buyers in the market. However you want to pitch that, so to speak.
Mhm.
But this is how, like, this is the part of the script, if you will, how I like to say, how I'm going to serve your need.
Okay. So you call up, ask for the famous person. They say, yeah. And then you go into, well, I bet you'd like to know who the heck I am.
Right.
And so kind of like, do you do like a value pitch at that point? Like, hey, listen, I understand you live at 1234 Main Street.
Yep.
And then do you say something to the effect of, I've got buyers for that. I know somebody looking at, I mean, like what actually do you get in? When do you actually get into the sales and what your call is about?
Right. Yeah. And so, and I want to also be very clear that most cold calls don't always end up in a one call close, right? And
Sure.
I'm really big on one call closes, but a cold call is the close is getting the appointment, right? It's getting that opportunity to maybe we hop on a Zoom so then we can definitely meet each other. At which point, I may even ask them like, are you on Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that, so that you could put a face with the name? And I would want to connect with them somehow, because the reality is connection is currency, right? So a lot of people have a challenge of understanding that because they haven't connected with themselves first, right? That
Sure.
mindset. So like connection is currency. So find a way in which you mentioned common ground. To me, that's connection. Find a way to connect with them and, get permission to, connect with them, like, especially if they're on LinkedIn. That's a great way to really prepare yourself for the actual meeting. And then get their email address. And maybe if you're having challenges kind of getting to, the Facebook or the LinkedIn, get their email address. So then you can definitely make sure that when you go to set the appointment, that that they accept that you immediately send the email invite. And I even go as far as to say, while I have you on the phone, I'm sending you a calendar invite. I just want to make sure that you got it, and please go ahead and accept it.
Sure.
And if they're too busy, then it's our responsibility as the sales professional to make sure that they accepted it, and then follow up with them if they don't, because otherwise you're going to feel like you got ghosted. But the reality is you didn't get ghosted. You just didn't take the right step in the right direction as a sales professional to ensure they were going to make that meeting. So the cold call, I would say the win is definitely setting the appointment, setting the meeting.
So, a lot of this sounds like, and I always relate car sales back to sales because everybody's bought more cars than they bought houses, and they understand what it's like through the process of buying a car. So the one thing I always find interesting about the car sales guy, and I think it relates to every sales position, is car salespeople, they steer the conversation. They are telling you where to go, what to do. And have you ever noticed that when you get back from a test drive with a car, the car salesman's like, all right, let's go over here, come on. And then they start walking away, and you instantly start following them, and you're steering them, and you're taking the conversation inside to go sit down at the desk, to go write up your offer, to do your Foursquare. And I think it's such a brilliant art that you have so much control over that client that you've just met, you've just taken a 4-minute test drive with, and now all of a sudden they're writing an offer on a car. It's not like you're tricking them or anything like that, but you've established confidence. You're road mapping the process for them. And that sounds kind of like what you're doing on the sales calls when you're talking to somebody. Like, you're doing the introduction, you're showing your value add, you're showing them your service, and then you're saying, look, give me your email. I'm going to send you a calendar invite. I mean, you're making it a no-brainer for these people to follow along and say, okay, right? I mean, am I on base here or what?
Yeah. I mean, you can even drop like, look, I want to be sensitive to the fact that we should still be social distancing, especially in California.
Sure.
And talk about it. Like, let's talk about these things. And this is why this is important for us to do it this way, because we can do everything virtually now. We can hop on a Zoom, and I can be of service to you and your family. And I would even go as far as, like, if they're giving you pushback, just flat out ask them, how can I be of service to you or your family or anybody that you might know that could use my service? Just ask them, how can I be of service? Because it's this difference between McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, right? Like, for those that having ever experienced the difference between the two, let me tell you, there's a big difference between the two different types of service that you're going to get. I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A, they're going to address me by my name, and then they're also going to say, when I say thank you, they're going to say it's my pleasure. Right.
Well, I mean, I think that also comes down to how many times a week are you going to Chick-fil-A, dude?
Right.
For them to know
Yeah,
your name, my God. I mean,
no, I mean, like they're
lay
gonna,
off the Chick-fil-A, man.
no, I mean, like they're gonna know my name at like because they asked for it at the
No,
window,
I am just playing.
and then they're gonna know.
You're a regular at Chick-fil-A. What a great thing. What a great accomplishment.
They're in Thousand Oaks, bro. We go to Chick-fil-A. My wife and I, we like the mac and cheese.
Oh my God, that's so great, dude. All right, so given the times that we're in, is it just plain outright rude to call somebody on the phone? Are people just so sensitive right now, or how do you get your foot in the door besides the famous, quote, whatever? I mean, people probably don't want to be disturbed. They're working from home. Is it still office hours? I mean, has nothing changed?
Well, I mean, yeah, definitely people are home more now than ever, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a way in which that you can really present yourself to not be so intrusive. But at the same time, we have to be, cautious of TCPA regulations. And, it's really all about your data and the list in which you build. And so, you could build out your list, scrub your list, and then also, do some research within your list and see if you can't find some of these people on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and maybe if you get a list and where you have their emails, that's, there's can spam act laws that you have to worry about as well. But I mean, it's always easier to touch them in some other way than the phone call. Don't get me wrong. There's so many other ways that you can go about it and be creative. And the ultimate thing is to get them on the phone, right? So there's creative ways in which you can get people on the phone. And I love LinkedIn because, that right there, you can definitely fill a sales funnel in any kind of like vertical, whether it be real estate or whatever. You can certainly use that you can send voice messages, video, like, I'm really big fan of video too, like, especially right now that they can put a face with the name, on video.
Sure. So guys, we do have, Q&A down here if you want in the chat section. Make sure you guys chime in, ask any questions to Jake. I mean, he is a beast at telesales. So make sure you guys do that. So let me ask you about this. You and I were speaking last week, like I'd said, and you started asking me about my business. And like I kind of said in the intro there that, a lot of my drive comes from helping people and wanting to make sure that I'm surrounded by the best in the business. And then you kind of lifted up and showed me your shirt, compassion before commission. Yeah. And really, I think that how that led into it was on the real estate side of things, that if I don't feel a deal is right for my client, I will tell my client. And, I will forego a commission, because if I put my client into a bad situation, a bad home, a bad transaction, and I've told my clients point blank, do not buy this house. Yeah. And they will be lifelong clients of mine because they know that I have their best interest at heart. And so that's when you told me about the compassion before commission. So can you elaborate on, am I missing anything about that? And tell me more about how you came up with it.
Yeah. And I like where you're going with that, and just kind of how people might be able to, a way of which they could ask this in their script or presentation. Be mindful to think outside the script. But I would say, my service is awesome, but I'm not a good fit for everybody. That's why the meeting that I want to have with you is to determine if what I call a mutual fit discovery. Like, some people use the word synergy and that word's played out. So I like mutual fit. Like, let's find our mutual fit. Because whenever you and I first met, I think you hopped on my mutual fit discovery call on my Calendly, right? So, okay. Yeah, right. And then we found a mutual fit and we've jammed together, right? Yeah. So to me, it's finding that mutual fit, like you said. And if I'm not a good fit for you, I'm going to tell you straight up, right? And I'm going to be honest with you. There might be somebody else in Northern California that's a better fit for you, or whatever, like being okay with walking away from a deal and saying no, there's power in no, right? And being able to walk away from a deal. And so there's power in no. So that really shows that you genuinely care and that you give a crap. Like, you know, sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. I'm going to be more enthusiastic to know that I can serve you, help you, and make an impact, because then impact equals revenue. So, you know, really find ways in which that you can make an impact in people's lives. And that right there there's going to be a byproduct from that impact. And that's obviously the revenue.
Man, I think that is such an impactful statement, mutual fit discovery. Because to me, if I was to say that to a client and a client heard that, because my reaction was, wait a minute, they don't want my business. You know, like
Right.
I might not be a good fit for them. I have the house for sale.
Right.
So that's my thought process going through right now is like, but I have a house for sale and you're a real estate agent. You should want to list my house. What do you mean a mutual fit discovery? Are you crazy? You know, I'm the one that's going to be paying you. I love that. I love that. I think that everybody should incorporate that in their calls, their meetings. And it's almost like saying, I don't know if I want your business, you know, in a very, very polite way.
Hey, let me ask you this. You go to a restaurant, it's maybe not right now in these times, but let's call it pre-corona. If you get to a restaurant and it was an empty parking lot, are you going to eat there?
Right. Probably not.
Are you going to do business with somebody that's got all the time in the world? Right.
Right.
I got empty spaces on my calendar all over the place. Just let me know. I want your business. Come, you know. So
are you free at 9? Are you free at 10? Are you free at 11? Free at 12?
Yeah. I'm a big fan of takeaway selling too. Like, you know, here it is, but I'm going to take it away and let you know, like, here, it's like now I got a little bit of leverage. You know what I mean?
Sure. All right. So how do you get over the constant rejection and no? Stop calling me, F you. You know, I hate realtors, whatever, and click. I mean, we've heard them all. I hate telesales, you know, leave me alone. How do you go on to the next phone call with a smile on your face?
Right. So this is a really good question. It's like, go for the no, right? And we're talking about no. And so, you know, I even encourage agents to say, like, count the no's. and then once, let's say, depending on what your lead flow is, are you paying for inbound calls? Are you doing cold calling? So depending on what your activity needs to be, to say, okay, I can take 100 no's today, right? And then understand, like, I'm going for those 100 no's, and then I'm going to go for one more, because that one more dial might be all the difference made up for all those 100 no's, right?
Sure.
Just like the perfect example. Last week, I cold call a guy, and I immediately try to find the common ground. I'm like, look, your buddy's with my buddy. And he's like, oh yeah, you tell him he, you know, like, and then so like I found that common ground. I didn't ask my buddy for permission to find that common ground. I just went for it, right? And so from there, I went, and then I was like, okay, well, maybe we're not a good fit right now, but do you know any? So then I asked, like, who do you know? Like, I asked first and foremost, I said, this is how I can be of service to you, right?
Yeah.
And then, so from there, I asked, well, who do you know that can help me? Whenever I realized that my service wasn't, so here's a good takeaway. If you don't get anything here today, get these two things. How can I be of service? And who do you know that can help me? So if there's any reason in which that I can't be of service to you, I'm going to ask you, who do you, or even if I can, but I'm always going to ask, because it's okay to have a give and have an ask too. A lot of people say, well, I'm just going to give and I'm not going to ask anything in return. I used to be that guy. That was foolish. Like, you got to ask, you know? So who do you know that can help me? And so basically from there, gave me a number to another call center that happens to be in Beverly Hills, who I then hit it off. Like, the first time I called the dude, I was like, hey, is this the famous Will, you know? And then he hung up on me. And then I just assumed, right, because I'm assumptive, because I'm a beast, I just assumed his phone got disconnected. I called him right back. And I was like, hey, let me tell you exactly who I am and why I'm calling. You know, so-and-so gave me your phone number. And then from there, led into, okay, let's schedule a time to meet. We couldn't meet at the call center because coronavirus and all that. So we did a Zoom. So from the Zoom, he introduced his business partner, who then his business partner was like, look, if I gave you $200,000 right now, what would you do with it, kind of conversation, you know?
Wow.
And I would have never had that conversation, had a couple of things, right? had I not asked, who do you know that can help me? Had I not picked up the phone and called, and when he hung up on me on the first time, then I called him back again, like, because I'm assumptive, all these different things wouldn't have happened to that outcome, right? Because I was too busy enjoying the journey, too busy enjoying the conversation and finding the dialogue, right? So that's what I say to anybody listening today is emotionally detach yourself from an outcome. Do have a desired outcome, do have it in mind and always have it in mind, but don't lose track of the journey. Enjoy the journey.
So that's an interesting thing that, you bring up about asking for the business. That's something that I've never been shy about doing. And I will point blank ask my friends, and I've mentioned this multiple times before, that I will ask them for the business. And I mean, I texted somebody a couple of days ago and said, look, I sold you your condo back in 2014, whatever. You bought it for $650. It's now worth about $900. It's time to sell. When can we list it? That was literally my text to them. Now, I know I should have called, but they're a doctor and they work long hours, so I'm not going to disturb them. But they're that good a friend, and I've known them for 30 plus years. So when are we going to sell? Now is the time. So asking for the business, if you aren't point blank and as a matter of fact, I don't think you'll ever get to the commission point, because you keep going. I won't say who it is that I think this of about a coach that's out there or a motivational speaker guy, but I've watched a couple of his videos, and he goes around the bullseye and around the target, and he never hits the bullseye. And all of his stuff is just a lot of talky, and you never understand what the point is. Right. And so I think that's what about asking for the business is that's the bullseye, everyone. That's the point of why you're calling, why you've been able to have them on the phone for so long. And you've got to close them. And a closing question, like you just said, Jake, is who do you know who can help my business? Was that what it was?
Yeah, it's asking for a referral. Like we try to overcomplicate, especially when it comes to asking for referrals. And I've seen and I've been a part of Bill Cates, the referral coach, which, by the way, is a really good referral coach. He has what he calls a VIP system. It's value, importance, person of interest. And it's like he has this whole walkthrough, his acronym of asking for referrals. Mm-hmm. And it starts with, who do you know that can see the value in the work that I do? I mean, I like that question, but I also like this acronym of KISS, keep it simple, silly, right? Just keep it simple and just say, who do you know that can help me? And that's asking for a referral. And that's how you as a realtor are going to grow your business astronomically, is just by simply asking that one question. And I want to challenge everybody that's listening or on this right now on the Zoom, start asking that question every call, every opportunity, who do you know that can help me? And just ask it, but don't ask it without, how can I be of service to you, right?
How can I be of service? Boy, you guys better rewatch this, write these down if you haven't written them down yet, and rehearse these. Because, you and I have talked about it before. I'm very big on scripts. And I think that, scripts, objections, rebuttals is the foundation of real estate. It's the foundation of sales, in my opinion. And every time I go, whether it was for a job, to go ask for a raise, I had a script. I had an idea of what I was going to say, how I was going to say it. I always felt like my strength was it's a chess match. I was 3 moves ahead of everybody else. So if I say, hey, would you like to sell your home today? I know what your response is going to be. Then I know how I'm going to rebut that. And I know how you're going to react to that. And then I know how I'm going to rebut that. So I'm 3 moves ahead of the conversation. And I think that, having some of these key takeaways that Jake has been mentioning here, I mean, you need to incorporate them. The mutual fit discovery, that's my new favorite right there, man. That's awesome. All right, so a couple more questions. And if you guys in the audience have any questions on Facebook or on the Zoom call, please type them in now. Let's get this going. So salespeople fail constantly. And I think a majority of the reason is follow up and follow through.
Yeah.
In the sales call, you get the appointment, they miss the appointment. How often do you follow up? How often do you follow through? And does it just come down to that other person on the other side of the phone going, leave me the F alone. Don't ever call me again. Is that when you stop, or is there a number? What's the target?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's also understanding the tools that are out there. I mean, hey, it's 2020 now. I mean, there's a lot of tools out here that can help you follow up and do it efficiently. And then let's talk about efficiency of which we follow through and the frequency in which we do. And so, like, I love Calendly. I've already dropped that in there on this Zoom today. Is Calendly gives me the ability to already set up an automated rule to send a follow-up text. I can send the follow-up text. I can send a follow-up email 24 hours before, up to an hour before, 10 minutes before the meeting. And that way I've never been ghosted on a podcast because I use Calendly and it's sending those reminders, you know?
Right.
And then I'm also very smart enough to know that I live and die by my Google Calendar, flat out. If it's not on my calendar, I'm probably not gonna make it, right? And
Right.
and that's the same thing. Think about that with other people too, especially more affluent individuals that you probably are very after prospecting. They're most likely very big fans of the Google Calendar. So make sure that they accept your invite, which by their name has the little green check mark to show that they accepted that invite, to ensure that they're going to go there. So I would say, as much as possible, be efficient and make sure that it's on your calendar and on their calendar is the best way to ensure like the follow-up procedures are there. Because as a true self, like I think as a prospect that I would appreciate that more if you went out of your way to make sure that you know, all those things were taken care of, right? Like through, and then use the tools that you have now available in 2020, like Calendly, to make sure that the follow-up's there.
Yeah. How important is it that your systems are automated for you? Does it free up a tremendous amount of time?
Absolutely. And then I think in terms of like workflows too, like when they fill out the form, they're going to get a follow-up email, like instantly follow-up email. And like as much as I can possibly automate or build out a workflow that can like make it a seamless, because I think in terms of the customer experience, like what is that experience like for the other person that's going through my workflow of my pipeline? Like what experience, like, so how did it make you feel, right? How did it make you feel when you filled out the form? And I'm asking for 180 feedback too. I'm like, hey, do you mind like providing me feedback on that experience? What was that experience like? How did that make you feel? And so having an understanding of that customer's journey, like trying to make the biggest impact through their journey of working with you is, I think, really important.
Wow, man. I mean, you've given us, or given me at least, I don't know if anybody else is writing these down, but I definitely have notes, and I'm telling you, I love the mutual fit discovery. I think that is such a great indirect way of showing somebody, like, not in a rude manner, but almost like, I don't need your business, but we're going to see if we can work together and make something happen here. And then the service don't sell. Boy, that's so huge, man. It's so huge. Give me the BEAST acronym again. Bold.
Yeah. Bold, empathetic, assumptive, servant,
Okay.
and teachable. Yeah.
Teachable.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
How
Yeah.
big has coaching been in your life?
I mean, I have what I call distant mentors, right? Like
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill, Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, who I just had a chance to jam on a podcast.
Wow.
Eric Thomas, who I ran into at Disney World one time, had to get the photo shot, you know?
Sure.
Like,
Eric Thomas is interesting.
Yeah.
You know, what's his background? Do you know? I mean, was he a football player?
Oh no, like he was a high school dropout, was homeless, ate out of trash cans, rags to riches, man. And then, you know, it's like having mentors, like whether you watch them on YouTube, listen to the podcast. I mean, the reality is a lot of this stuff that's out there, especially for entrepreneurs like ourselves, all originated from Think and Grow Rich.
Sure.
So like really go to the source, man, you know?
Yeah. My wife has been telling me to read that book for years, and one day I'll do it. But Eric Thomas, you know, Eric Thomas scares me a little bit because it always reminds me of like a Scared Straight episode.
Right.
You know, like, come on, man, you can do it. You know, and
you know, that's hilarious you said that, because my wife, when she was taking the picture and he was talking to us at Disney World, she goes, you know, he's really chill in person. He didn't yell at all.
right.
He was really calm.
Another guy I like is Les Brown.
Yeah, I love Les
I
Brown.
like
Yeah.
Les Brown. He's very chill, and I think it's his I guess his attitude and demeanor fits my style. So I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So
Almost got the podcast booked with him. We've been working on it for a while. He and I have been chatting on LinkedIn. So like that is like a hashtag goal of mine. He's one of my favorite human beings on this earth.
who's that?
Les Brown. Yeah,
Oh my God! Wow, I'll
yeah,
tune in for that one for sure.
yeah.
Well, listen, man, Jake, I've got really nothing else, man. I mean, I've covered 2 pages of notes here, and unless anybody else has got something on the chat or on Facebook, I'll check out Facebook here. I mean, we've covered almost an hour now, which was really almost double what I thought we would be doing, and I think this has been just such an amazing, insightful. I mean, just the takeaways alone. I mean, it's from now on, it's changed the way I will make calls. And you know, you've covered a lot of the things about asking for the business that I wholeheartedly agree with. I love the takeaway kind of standpoint. The assumptive part of Beast is so huge. I will tell you that even in my conversations with clients and friends, you know, I will tell them when we list your home, when I sell your home, and when I start speaking like that, they're just like, oh, I guess he's our agent. You know, it's just such a great impactful thing.
Right. Yeah. Just assume it, you know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, why not? I mean, they're looking for you too anyways. They're
Yeah.
hoping you make that decision for them, you know, so 'cause a lot of people, man, and myself included, we can be indecisive.
Right. Right. Well, you know, again, it goes back to the car salesman and he's waving you in like, come on, let's go. And when you roadmap it, it's funny. We were on a call yesterday and one of the agents said, hey, I got a situation and, you know, what should I do here? And, you know, part of it was, should I just go leave the pamphlet at the guy's house? A couple people were like, yeah. And I just said, no, go drive to the guy's work because the guy owns a business, whatever, and like a store or something. Go drive to the guy's work. You have him captive. Go show him what you're willing to do. The service, what was it? The service, serve, don't sell.
Yeah.
Go show him what you're willing to do for the guy's business, and you'll win that deal. Could you
Absolutely.
imagine driving to somebody's location that might be an hour and a half away and saying, hey, by the way, I'm here. I want to show you what I'm willing to do for your business. Boy, that's impactful. That's something that I think that gentleman will win that transaction. And not only that, again, I'm big on road mapping things and leading people and showing them that I'm the authority. I'm the realtor here. And so I said, bring some other properties that this guy can go buy once you sell his house. Show him the motivation. Get him excited about the possibilities of doing something else. And so I'm excited to see what that agent actually does by kind of road mapping the sale for that client. Because if you make it easy enough for them to understand and you break it down, it's a no-brainer. You'll get the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the word you use while you're walking us through that was impactful. So I promise you, wherever you can find the impact, you're going to find the revenue. It's right there because it equals it. It's the same thing. Impact equals revenue. So find the impact. What's the impact? And find a way to be of service, and you're going to find the revenue every time.
Well, Jake, you got anything else for me, man? You know I'm a huge fan, and I love talking to you all the times that we've spoken so far. This will not be the end of our relationship. We are going to do business together. We are going to become friends. You're right down the street from me, so we're going to – one of these days we'll meet.
Yeah. For now, we'll zoom it up, my brother.
All right. So tell everybody where we can find you.
Yeah. So it's just jakelynn.com, JAKELYNN.com. All things telesales. You can search that, allthingstelesales.com. And find me on LinkedIn, connect with me. Let me know that you heard about me through Coach Galardi. I'd love to hear from you.
Now, do you have a coaching platform and I'm not big on promoting other people's coaching platforms on mine. I had somebody that reached out to me on LinkedIn. They're like, yeah, I'd love to be on your show. What do you do? Oh, I'm a real estate coach. Beat it. Like, no way, man. Are you crazy? But no, I would love to promote you, man. You've been nothing but gracious to me and stuff. And I think that our two businesses can actually really almost, coincide and coexist. So I would love to give you a shout out and promotion. But, do you have a coaching program for people that want to be mastering telesales?
Right. Yeah. So we are working on it. And I'm actually working with like David Meltzer and some other people.
Sure.
And then so The concept is phone playbook, like building out a playbook. So that's in the works right now. But right now, as far as what's available, I do have a training system on Lightspeed VT, which the Grant Cardones and Eric Thomases of the world, they all have a Lightspeed VT system. Brad Lee, his company. So I have one that's for final expense telesales right now, specifically for selling life insurance over the phone. So as far as it relates to this, I don't know, man. Maybe that's something that we collaborate with together, and you know, however I can be of service to you and your team, and that would be pretty sick if we could, you know, just kind of add value and build something.
Before we go, let me ask you just one question, one final question. Do you know anybody who can help my business?
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely do. I need to put my wife through that real estate class. So you let me know.
Working on it. We're working on it, buddy. Hey, shoot me a phone call after this thing, and I want to just, you know, talk to you and thank you personally for this, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yeah. My pleasure.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to Think Like an Executive. Another supposed to be a 30-minute free coaching call, which turned into almost an hour. So thank you, guys. We do these every 2 weeks, no matter what day. It's always Wednesday at 10 a.m., but it's every 2 weeks. So we will announce very soon who the next interview is going to be in about 2 weeks from now. Make sure you check us out on anchor.fm. We have turned every show now. You're so welcome, Jade. We've turned every show into a podcast now. So we have the Think Like an Executive podcast. So if you just want to listen to it in your car, anchor.fm. Jake, all things telesales.com, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And your podcast where's it featured on?
Every format. If it's not on your format, you let me know. I'll get it there.
All right. Yeah. I mean, Stitcher and Google and I mean, everything. So
tell Alexa, you might have to tell her about 50 times to get it, but you can tell her.
Right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Jake, I'll talk to you shortly.
All right.
Have a great day, everybody. Keep selling. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.